Hey, welcome to Contychat. I'm Diana Hashim, your host for today. Now, it is an absolute pleasure having you with us today because I've got two very special guests. But before I dive into that, be sure to catch our previous interviews. Otherwise, if you want to watch this interview again, you can find us at MyTV on Salaran 123. Otherwise, you could catch us on Spotify. And be sure to follow us on our social media accounts on Instagram and TikTok at Contychat. But I'm going to dive straight into it, okay? Today, the topic is about PCOS, Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. Now, if you've never heard about it, well, it's something that you should definitely try to enlighten yourself with. But it's only because this is something that not a lot of people know they might have, specifically towards women who are under the age of 50. And it is basically a hormone-related condition caused by an imbalance of reproductive hormones that affects millions of women. And I've got two very special guests in the studio with me right now. I'm speaking to Dr. Sumitra Devi Valyapan, a fertility specialist, as well as Dina Marzuki, the president of My PCOS. I love you. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. It's an absolute pleasure. How are you both today?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today.
Okay, well, the thing is, I know this conversation is gonna last for a long time because because there's just so much to talk about. It's a very interesting topic because first and foremost, there are so many people who may have PCOS but they do not know about it. But I suppose to begin with, for the benefit of our viewers, Doctor, could you explain to us exactly what PCOS is?
Okay, PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. So actually the name itself is a misnomer. So all of us in the medical fraternity agree to that because it seems to say that the problem lies in the ovaries, that and there are cysts in the ovaries. So let me break it down for you. PCOS. Poly means a lot, cysts. That's where the misnomer is because they're not actually cysts, they're actually lots of follicles. And follicles are what contains eggs, and that's actually good. It's good to have many follicles and many eggs in your follicles. Then PC, the O is ovary, and syndrome. Why it's called syndrome is because you need 2 out of 3 characters before we can say that the person actually has PCOS. So one of the criteria, and this is called the Rotterdam criteria, and you need 2 out of 3. One of them is irregular menses or absolutely no menses. The second would be if they have got signs of hyperandrogenism. Androgens are male hormones. The visible signs in a woman would be if she's got excessive hair growth, for example, facial hair over her upper lips, her chin, in her mid chest, her lower abdomen, her back, between her shoulder blades. So her arms, her legs, a bit of excessive hair growth. There may be also male pattern balding, temporal side, and then you've got this widow's peak. They might have temporal balding. Acne, oily skin and acne. So that's the hyperandrogenism component. And then the third component, how we diagnose PCOS, is if they have got a on scan, and where we see the appearance of a pearl string or a pearl necklace. You can imagine how a pearl necklace looks, beautiful pearl string on the necklace string. And that's how it would look like on a scan, and it would look like little black dots on the scan, black circles on the scan. Why black? Because fluid-filled spaces look black on a scan. So that's where the disease actually got its name from. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, from the scan appearance.
And this is something that has affected so many women, and it's just something that people don't think to test out because they don't really know what the symptoms are.
Most women don't even know they have got PCOS. You're absolutely right. At least 5 to 10% of women in their reproductive age, meaning women who've had their menses up to their menopause, 5 to 10% of them actually are walking around with PCOS, and half of them don't know that they've got PCOS. And it's the thing is that it's got long-term consequences to their life. That's where it's important for them to know whether they've actually got PCOS. Because you won't have all 3 symptoms. Like I said, irregular menses, hyperandrogenism, or scan. There's no way they're going to know that they've got polycystic ovaries on scan unless they go in for a scan. So if they don't take notice of that, a little bit of excessive hair, they might think it's normal because it's genetic. They might say, it runs in my family, so I have a bit more excess hair. Pimples might be, acne might be genetic to them. Menses might be just slightly irregular. When we say irregular menses, what we mean is they got less than 9 cycles in a year. So they might get 7 or 8, and they might feel it's absolutely normal. They might just blame it on stress, fights with the husband, fights with the parents, work stress, and they never think that they've got PCOS.
Interesting. Dina, when did you first find out that you had polycystic ovarian syndrome?
So I first found out I had PCOS when I was 17 years old, and the reason to the doctor's visit was mainly because I did not have my period till then, which was never a problem for me growing up because I was a very active girl. So not having period was a good thing because I was a very sporty person. So I didn't have a downtime, as you'd say. However, I think I've had PCOS since I was much younger. I think about 14. Just that I never knew it was PCOS. So I've always had problems with weight gain, sugar cravings, headache, and then of course excessive hair growth. Also, my hair on my legs were growing more like a man textured hair, rather than the fine ones like women get, right? So I never really knew what was going on, and so when I went to the doctor at 17 years old, the doctor ran some blood tests as well as an ultrasound. Like you said, there was pearls in my ovary scan, and then for my blood test, it was a flip FSH, FSH and what? LH.
What does that mean? What does that entail?
Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone.
Yes, correct. So in a normal situation, your FSH, these are both hormones that are produced by our brains, and these are the ones that actually control what happens in the ovaries. So and it's cyclical, and that's just God given. That every month the FSH goes high, and it tells the ovaries produce one egg, and then one egg is produced and it ovulates. You ovulate, and then if you don't get pregnant, you have your menses. So it goes on cyclically.
That's the cycle of women's life.
Yes,
women's reproductive life.
All right, so continue on.
Mine was found flipped, and then the doctor, like I said, the unfortunate part was the doctor did not sort of sit me down properly to explain to me what it was. She was just saying like, you gotta watch your weight, and there's a possibility that, there were a lot more other conversations, but I felt like the ones to highlight was you gotta lose weight, and there will be a possibility that you won't get pregnant because you're infertile. From that particular appointment, what took away was the part where I was infertile, because I've always wanted a child since I was like a very young girl. I was that child that you would see pushing the strollers, the plastic strollers. So that was really an eye-opening experience for me. However, she gave me a birth control pill, which she thought would work. I did take those birth control pills for a couple of months until I only felt worse symptoms after that. Headaches became full-blown migraines. Periods became full-blown period cramps that I could not bear, and then water retention causes more weight gain. So I think after that I just stopped taking birth control pills. And this is not to say birth control pills don't work for every woman, like it just has adverse effect for myself. I didn't go back to the doctor because I felt like it was a lot of that lose weight. Like, honestly, at that point in time I was already playing about like 10 different sports and doing track and field, so I didn't understand why I wasn't losing weight. Wasn't helping that I was also sort of suffering from depression, and I didn't understand why either. I think I blamed that depression on body dysmorphia of like people calling me out Bigfoot, Sasquatch and all that name. So I thought like, my body's just not normal, And in that era, nobody showed me like Cardi B or Beyonce type body. It was mainly like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, and they were
back
like
in the day.
Yeah.
And it's a traumatizing thing to say to a 17-year-old at that point of time.
It is. I think she did, but like, it's still traumatizing enough for me to remember that she's like, hey, you'll be infertile, and it did affect me in my marriage the first year, because I was like, I may be infertile. Let's try this. Like, let's go try, and it was really bad. But that was when I first found out.
Is it actually impossible to, like, really that impossible to get pregnant if you have PCOS? What are some of the steps that you need to do actually?
Absolutely not. It's actually I always tell all my PCOS patients, because those that don't know that they've got PCOS, so I sit them down and then I explain what PCOS is. It takes about half an hour to more than half an hour to explain exactly what PCOS is and what it's going to entail currently and what's going to happen in future. And then because I am a fertility specialist, so they come to see me for a baby. And then I tell them, at the end of it, I tell them it's going to be very easy. It should be very easy getting you pregnant. I'm pretty confident we'll be able to get you pregnant. There's no guarantees though. There's no guarantees to tablets, to IUIs, to IVFs. But you know, I like working with PCOS women. They're the easiest to get pregnant, I feel. It is easier than people having things like endometriosis, big bulky cysts or bulky uteruses, bulky wombs, you know, where there's no sperm. PCOS, it's just a matter of them not ovulating, and it's not too difficult getting them to ovulate. So somewhere down the line, most of my PCOS patients have already had their baby. In fact, 2.
I'd like to add on, like you mentioned, you have to take about half an hour to 45 minutes to explain. And that's one thing I salute you for, because most doctors won't take that time with patients. The number of women that I've spoken to in my community has gone through at least 3 to 4 doctors before they find the right one. And that's the unfortunate part in the healthcare, you know. And to be sitting with a doctor that does that really puts me in a very emotional state, because I was also one of those that went through that. Like
Don't worry about it.
Like, I went through that, you know, in and out of doctor's room, about 8 to 10 doctors, all telling me to lose weight, you know, and it's not that I didn't try. It's more like, why am I gaining weight? You know, like, you don't want to explain the science. I mean, maybe not medical jargons, but explain in layman terms for us to understand and do more research on us, you know what I mean? But I'm so glad that you're that doctor, honestly.
Yes, and it's really, really amazing that you not only do you have doctors like Dr. Sumitra, who's able to give that knowledge to the patients, but more importantly, we've got the My PCOS I Love You gang. Unfortunately, we're going to take a short break. We're going to dive back into that when we come back.
Tahun menjadi platform utama dalam kuasa viral TV dan radio. Kami di RTM pastinya boleh membantu melonjakkan prestasi perniagaan anda. Tunggu apa lagi? Jom iklankan produk anda di stesen berprestij kami hari ini. Hubungi maklumat tertera untuk maklumat lanjut.
Welcome back to Contychat. I'm still with Dr. Sumitra as well as Dina. We're talking about PCOS, a little something that is not so little, because a lot of women might be living with it. It can go undiagnosed. Some people might not even realize that they have it, but we're going to learn a lot more right now from these lovely ladies. Now, earlier on, we were about to dive into Dina's community called My PCOS I Love You. Now, this is a group of women and men for the support team, of course, who are very much into and aware of PCOS. Now, could you share with us how it got started and how big is it now at this point of time?
We launched officially in 2021, September. So at that time, it was the year that we were in and out of MCO. And we launched with, a couple of collaborators that were very meaningful to us till today. So our organization's goal is really to educate and spread awareness about PCOS, which we felt was lacking in the country. I think a lot of women are walking around feeling confused as to why they're feeling pain every day. And I think the way that we spread the awareness or the information about PCOS is more on the layman terms. So I think it doesn't intimidate women as much as it would to go to a hospital listening to what's happening to their body, right? And the support we give women are either one-on-one, so they can either DM us on our Instagram, and then they can either speak to Ili or myself, or they can join our Facebook group and sort of just share the experience. And what that does in a Facebook group, the Facebook group is meant to be there so then other women can share the experience, and the others that are reading could actually learn from those experiences, and it's trial and error. Because PCOS, it's so individualistic, every woman has to work differently in order to find what is balanced for them, right? So when they read about other people's achievements or other people's success, they're like, oh, okay, I can try that. They can try it for a couple of months, don't work, they change to this other person. So for example, I cannot be advising another PCOS woman on how to run their lives because it may not work. So that's what our Facebook group does, and we have an Instagram that creates the awareness and also educates. So we post up different information about PCOS, talking about the hormones, talking about high insulin resistance, talking about the different types like chronic inflammation and so on and so forth. And then we also have a PCOS web series where we gathered 16 women around Malaysia to tell us the story about their PCOS journey. Like I mentioned, it's so individualistic. So we had to, 16 women didn't cover everything. I can tell you that much. But it did help. And what we wanted that to do was to educate men as well in the process. It doesn't necessarily need to be your partner. It can be a brother, it could be a father, to better understand and support their daughters, their mothers, and so on and so forth, because it's so important. PCOS is like fighting an invisible battle every day, so it's very hard for us to keep telling, like, hey, today I'm going to war again with my body, So it's so important for a man to sort of just step up, or a friend. It doesn't have to be necessarily a man. A friend could just be like, yeah, if you're feeling off, know that you're doing well. So that's what our community does, is to make sure that our ladies and our male counterparts don't feel alone in handling PCOS in any parts and form. Yeah,
especially when it comes to if it's something that they had never realized that they had. They learned that they are diagnosed with PCOS, and then the next thing you know, they start to say, what now?
Exactly.
What kind of support do I have? What do I do next? And it is a daunting experience, like what you had mentioned prior, in terms of meeting so many doctors,
That's
figuring
right.
out this diagnosis. But Dr. Sumitra, do you handle a lot of PCOS cases in your hospital?
Because I specialize in fertility medicine, meaning trying to get them pregnant. Unfortunately, yes, we do see I would say half of the patients that come into my clinic actually have PCOS.
Right.
But the good news is, I want the ladies out there to know, I want to reinforce this, is that it's not difficult to get you pregnant. So don't have this, big thing over your head saying
The
that you're
mental block.
never, you're never going to have a baby. No, you most probably will have a few kids.
Yes. Second opinion, very important. When you go to one doctor, if someone says that you have PCOS, if someone says you are infertile, you just go to another doctor until you find one that is able to say the realistic terms that is suited to your body as
That's
well.
right.
It's because at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself in a way, because it could lead to other problems in the future for PCOS. Doctor, could you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So the problems are long-term health problems related to PCOS are connected to these two hormones, actually, two main hormones. One is insulin, so there's insulin resistance, and the other one is androgens. Androgens I mentioned earlier, the one that causes androgenization, hair and acne and sebum, also can lead to obesity or having a bit of weight issues in women. So some of the things that they have to watch out for is things like diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, dyslipidemia, cardiovascular disease, heart disease. That can actually happen to them. May not happen immediately, it's not going to happen now, but it can happen anywhere down the line. So when we say PCOS is from anybody in the reproductive age, I actually feel that it is beyond the reproductive age, meaning even beyond menopause, because you're going to have diabetes, hypertension. You still look up for all those things. The other things that can happen is that obesity, like I mentioned earlier. And then there's infertility, because infertility is due to the high androgens, where they get irregular cycles and they don't ovulate. So if you don't ovulate, meaning it's going to be difficult getting pregnant. And then the other factor is endometrial cancer. So they have to be aware of having abnormal type of bleedings, heavy bleeding. They actually must see a gynecologist so that we can actually sample and see whether they've got hyperplasia, something called hyperplasia, or something like endometrial cancer. Now, the other thing that most people overlook in PCOS women that I want to highlight is that a lot of them body shame themselves. A lot of them are not aware that the obesity, the overweight, that it actually causes a lot of anxiety and depression. And they're not alone. We need to reach out, and there's a lot of counselors we can actually, and groups like My PCOS, I Love You. Lots of groups, Facebook groups and groups that you can reach out to for counseling and help, or reach out to your doctor. Tell us what you want, tell us what you need, and we'll connect you to the right people. Exactly.
Yep.
So that's very important. That part, the psychological aspect of it, not just the medical aspect. I want people to understand that PCOS women sometimes tend to have psychological aspects.
Yes, it's something that it's very important. I think we've highlighted it again and again, saying that if there's anything that you feel inside, you have to be able to reach out. You have multiple communities, and the best part is you have communities that also have an added support whereby you give the platform for others to speak out.
That's
and
right.
you share their stories as well. Now, this we'll look at a little bit of the happier side of the story. And Dina, you are a new mom, and tell us a bit about your your journey to conceiving.
Well, like I wanted to tag along on what you said. I think the issue with me, even like me as an individual, and I can safely say that it's a lot of the problem that a lot of women with PCOS face, is that I think from the get-go we've already had this mindset that we're not able to get pregnant. I think that was what stuck with me, and of course the anxiety and the trauma of all that growing up really just made it that much difficult to get pregnant, right? So when I first got married, obviously I was really trying hard. Scheduled sex and everything else was really bad, pushed my marriage to the edge. My husband fell into severe depression because I think he felt horrible that he wasn't able to do his job as a man, and because I was, it was the whole me trying to find my ovulation, and when I did find it, he may be tired from work and it was just really not working, and it was going on for months. And I did get pregnant naturally, however it did end up in a miscarriage at the 8th week. And then we kept trying naturally after that. I think it took me about 2-3 months to recover from the miscarriage, because I know I have an underlying mental health issue, which is depression and anxiety. So I had to sort of like heal myself from that loss first. I was able to get back on my 2 feet. Like I decided to do an IVF. But before I did my IVF, I ensured that, my hormones were balanced, my weight was at an okay stage. And I just want to point out, the BMI index unfortunately does not work for every woman. Like my good weight is at 70 kilos, and in the BMI I am overweight, but I feel great. I could run longer, I could do things, I was fit, and that was what matters to me. So I always advise women who wants to do IVF or anything, even want to get pregnant, to ensure that they feel fit. What they feel fit, not what the doctor says, not what anyone says, is they have to feel it, and then they go meet the doctor and sort of meet in the middle. And that's exactly what I did with my doctor. I did my best to do everything, and then went to KL Fertility Center, said, hey, I'm ready, I'm fit.
I'm very, very happy for you. Congratulations on that. And it does take a lot of hard work.
It does.
And I feel as though, like what you had mentioned, especially when it came to feeling fit, and going through all of that, Doctor, is there any way that women can sort of prevent the severity of PCOS, if that is the correct term of saying it, or perhaps even how do they take care of themselves?
That's an excellent question. You can't prevent it because you're born with it. And there's this genetic link to it. We don't know which gene. It's not just one gene. There's genetics, there's epigenetics, there's your lifestyle. So you can't, you're born with it, you'll take it to your grave. So you can't run away from it. But you can control it. You can control your life. You can take control of it. You don't let PCOS overtake you. Don't let it overtake your mind. It's very sad that you said that someone at 17 told you that you will never be able to have a child. Not for a 17-year-old. You shouldn't say this to any 17-year-old. I mean, anyway. So what they can do is, what I tell my patients is that don't be so hung on the fact that you are overweight or obese. Just do the work.
That's right.
Do the work. It
That's
doesn't
right.
matter if the weighing scale doesn't go down. What you need to do is just do the work, because you'll be building muscle mass. Most probably that's what's happening. Your fat is turning into muscle. That's why you don't see differences in the weighing scale.
Sometimes you
But-
gain weight.
Exactly, but it could be muscle mass.
Exactly,
You know,
that's
because
what-
you're doing the work. So exercise, I get them to do at least 30 to 40 minutes. If they can't do 1 hour, then I say, then just do 30 to 40 minutes. You don't have to jog, you don't have to hike, you just brisk walk. Do brisk walks, enjoy your evening walks, do your brisk walk with your partner or yourself, and do that about 5 times a week, maybe half an hour. That's all I want from them. That's all I ask from them. And you're not supposed to lose weight until you look like me or the next person. My size. No, what I want is, if possible, 5% of your body weight. Which, if you're 80 kilos, that's what, 4 kilos? You're asking for 3 and 4 kilos if you can. If you can't, it doesn't matter. I tell them, don't be fixated on that weighing scale. It's fine. Just keep it there so you monitor, so you know what's happening. But we don't want you to keep going up on a tangent. That's one. So don't be too fixated about your weight, but do the exercise. And then the other very important thing is your lifestyle, meaning the food that you take. So watch what you eat, but don't go so crazy about it that you cut out all the cakes and the sweets. I don't tell my patients you actually cannot have junk food, you absolutely cannot have pizzas and fast food, or, ice creams. You can, otherwise life will become very miserable. How are you going to go around? Limit yourself.
Yeah.
So don't do the whole tub. Maybe once or twice a week. If you want fast food, maybe once every 2 weeks. That's fine, because you know what you've done, and then you're going to just burn the calories. So if you've taken that amount, you know you have to put in extra work. Maybe another 10 minutes of extra walking. That's all you have to do.
Yep.
You don't have to live life, eating only greens and really boring stuff.
I'm one person that is a living proof that has tried keto, Atkins, all sorts of diet. I did crash diet, I did keto for a year. Nothing worked. I gained more weight, and the science behind that is because my stress hormones was on a high, and I didn't know that. And then there was one time I got so obsessive over CrossFit, did twice a day, ate 400 calories just to lose weight. Then I gained more weight. And you know what? Funny, what worked was 30 minutes a day. Eating whatever I want in moderation. I ate gluten, I ate dairy, ice cream, and I was like, and I lost weight, and I'm like, and I did it ever since. But that's right, because sometimes when you need to know your body, that's why it's so important for women to know.
Right. But unfortunately, ladies, we've run out of time. And I did mention to the producers we need to extend the time for this. But anyways, I'm speaking to Dr. Sumitra as well as Dina Mazuki. Now, we have been speaking about PCOS. Now, if you need to reach out, find yourself a fertility specialist, or you could hit up any form of PCOS communities like My PCOS. I love you, and thank you so much, ladies, for joining me today, and it has been an absolute pleasure. Remember, you can catch any of our other interviews on My TV on Salaran 123. Otherwise, you can hit us up on Spotify, and be sure to follow us on our social media accounts at Contychat. My name is Diana Hashim. Have a great day ahead.